Hello everybody, welcome back to Dee's Book Brain. I'm Dee and this is my book brain. So today we are going to talk about all the books I read in July. That is the month that has just ended. It is currently sometime in early August, so we're getting things done. And as you can tell, I am coming at you au naturel. Some days you want to bring the glam, and some days you want to hide in a cave and wait for a hobbit to come along and play the riddle game. I'm going with option number 2. So, let's get started with the books that I read in the month of July. So I read I finished 10 books in the month of July. When I say I read 10 books in the month of July, what I really mean is I finished them. So some of these books I started in March, April, May, June, whatever, and I've finished them. So 10, though it sounds like a big deal, might not actually be a big deal in reality. So, the first book I read in the month of July was The Likeness by Tana French. Maria French? Don't do that, that's stupid. This is a direct sequel from the book Into the Woods. No, that's a musical. In the Woods by Tana French. And this is this is following our lead detective who was I can't remember their names. Cassie. This is following the detective Cassie, who is the partner in the first book, and she's the main character in this book. So the premise of this particular story is that a woman is found murdered, and she happens to look exactly like our detective Cassie Maddox. Cassie Maddox, that's what it is. And so she is going undercover to infiltrate this house where the victim lived, and she has to essentially figure out who killed her. It was a very good mystery. It did not hit me as hard as the first one. If you've not read In the Woods, you absolutely should. It's one of the most heartbreaking books I've ever read in my life. I read it such a long time ago, and I told myself I was never going to read the second book because I can't handle that kind of emotional turmoil anymore. But it finally became available at my library, so I figured, let's go ahead and knock it out and read it, and I'm really glad I did. It is not your standard murder mystery whodunit. It is definitely much more character driven, and it's very in-depth. It's very emotional, but you really should read this one. It's, like I said, it's not typical, but if you like shows like The Sinner or what's that one that my husband likes? True Detective. If you like those kind of shows where the murder is part of it but not the main focus, it's really about the characters, then you would absolutely love the Dublin Murder Squad series. I'll probably read the third one in a couple of more months. I like to space these particular books out because they're very heavy hitting and they're a lot to take in. But overall, I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. So I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. It was a really great book. So yeah, pick it up. Alright, next I read Come Closer by Sarah Gran. This was a novella, a horror novella, and it's about this woman who believes she is possessed or becoming possessed by a demon. And it's actually brilliantly done. Just the way, like, the story hooks you in immediately from the get-go, and you want to know, like, what's going on with this woman. And you're along in her journey to kind of figure out what's going on, and, you know, is she possessed? Is she suffering from some sort of mental illness? Like, ooh, it leaves it up in the air, but, you know, you kind of figure it out. Like, you come to your own conclusions, and that to me is the best kind of horror, where it's not specifically laid out like this. It kind of leaves it up to you, and that to me is what draws you into the stories. You have to decide what's going on. But that was a good little quick horror film, quick little horror book. I read it in a day. You can too. I believe in you. Okay, so I gave Come Closer 4.5 out of 5 stars. The third book I read was Into the Drowning Deep by Mira Grant, also known as Shannon McGuire. for you book nerds out there. No, it's pretty common knowledge that they are one and the same. This one is about a expedition that goes missing, a seaward expedition that's looking for mermaids, and everybody on board dies. And so there's a second expedition where they go and try to figure out what happened to the original crew. It's actually really good. I listened to it as an audiobook, and fair warning, it kind of gets a little confusing only because there are so many characters. And everyone has a really in-depth backstory. Everyone's there for a reason, and the characters are just very fleshed out for there to be so many, which is always very impressive. But it's a horror book for sure. It was definitely eerie. I won't say it was terrifying, but one of the best parts about the book was you literally get the perspective from everybody. There are these 2 dolphins that they have on the trip with them, and they're going to send them out because dolphins are really smart and they can do what you tell them to do. And you literally hear part of the story from the perspective of the dolphins. I mean, and you're like, how can you get into a dolphin's mind? But boom, you end up there. It's really good. It was a very well done narrative. And the end, I was so disappointed. I was so sad because they meet the mermaids, and the mermaids are terrifying, and they're murderers, and they're killers. But the more they learn about the mermaids, the more realistically terrifying they become. Like the implications of what they discover are grander than just, what's happening on this boat. But at the very end, there is a big reveal, and I'm not going to spoil it, but I was so disappointed that the big reveal didn't happen like 3/4 of the way through, and then they deal with the repercussions of that. I was so sad. That being said, if there's a second novel continuing this story, sign me up. I'm all here for it. If not, it's so sad. But read it. It's, ocean horror. It's it's got a very isolating feel to it because you're trapped on this boat with all these people and things are going wrong. And when you're trapped on a boat, there's literally nowhere you can go, especially in the situation where the monsters are in the water. Go into the water, you're definitely dead, and it was very good. It was very good. And I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. So put that in your bucket, and what do you do with stuff in a bucket? Anyway, moving on. So the next book I read, I actually have a physical copy of. Fantastic Land by Mike Bachoven. We still haven't decided how to say it. I did a full review of this. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I absolutely loved this book. Best book I've read all year. Shorthand version. 300 or so teenagers are trapped in an amusement park after a hurricane comes through, and chaos ensues. It's a brilliantly told story. I loved it. I recommend everybody go out, pick up your copy, read it, tell me how you liked it. It was great. Alright. The next book I read, it was an audiobook. It was called The Handyman by Bentley Little. And this one kind of surprised me. I've had it in my Audible library for a while, but I haven't read it, and I just figured, I'll read it when I want to, or whatever. Listen, I don't know. So, this is about a man who grew up in a Frank house. And what a Frank house is this man, Frank Warren, I think is the name he knows him by. But anyway, he built all these houses in America, in this guy's town or whatever. Or actually, no, across the country. It's been a while since I read it, but it was really good. And things start happening in all of the houses that Frank built. And I'm not talking like necessarily pure shoddy workmanship, but like straight up things are happening. And it's very eerie, it's very creepy how the story unfolds, like how people get hurt mysteriously in these houses. But when you look at them, it's not just a structural error, it's something a lot more sinister. And they look inside walls and under houses and they find skeletons, and the story quickly unfolds and very quickly delves into just crazy stuff. Like, and this isn't really a spoiler, it's just kind of a progress in the story. But at one point in one of Frank's old houses that he actually lived in, they found like an infant, like mummified corpse, and it's just very unsettling. And so of course the police get involved, and but anyway, the main guy, his story, it's him trying to figure out what happened and find Frank and figure it all out. And the end was very good, because usually in paranormal-esque horror novels you don't really have a why of the evil. It just is. The evil just exists there. But in this particular story, you get a background on Frank, and you figure out exactly why he is the way he is and how he managed to do all the things he did. And it was actually really good. I was very impressed with Bentley Little's like storytelling. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. It was great. There was one part where, to me, it almost got a little too out there as far as the way the story had been going. But all in all, it was a fantastic story, and I will absolutely be reading more of Bentley Little. It was my first novel of his, but it will certainly not be my last. This isn't as funny as you're not going to have a lot of fun editing this one. Alright, so the next book I read was Haunted Nights by Ellen Datlow and Lisa Morton. I say by them, it was edited by them. Let me cover up the lighting on my face. Now I don't look as pale as a ghost. Oh, a ghost! Oh. So anyway, this is a collection of short horror stories that all take place on Halloween night. This was actually super good. Like, there were a few stories in here that I was like, it's fine. Don't worry about it. But there were some stories that really stuck with me. I am not one that typically has to watch cartoons before they go to bed after they've read something scary or watched something scary. But this one, there were a few stories in here that really got me nervous. Yeah, honestly, I was gonna try and pick a few out that are like, definitely read, but they're all really good. I guess if I had to pick my top 2, it would be Lost in the Dark, which is, I think, one of the longer ones in here, but it's so good. I mean, it's hoo-wee, hoo-wee. It's really good. And then I would say the first Lunar Halloween. They're actually the last 2 stories in the book, so if you just want to stop by your local bookstore and just peruse, no, don't include that, that's wrong. So if you only read 2 stories, pick the last 2. They're really good. But I would definitely pick this up if you like anthologies, compilations, collections of short stories. It's very scary, very good. Haunted Nights. And I gave that 4 stars. I gave a lot of good ratings this month. I had a good reading month, to be fair. Next book I read was 9 Perfect Strangers by Leanne Moriarty. It was fun. I gave it 3 stars. I have only read Big Little Lies by her, and I loved it. I loved it. It was one of the best books I read that year, and that was several years ago. This one had a wonderful premise. I am a sucker for isolated incidences. I love a story that takes place in one place, or 2 at most. Very intrigued by that, because the author is forced to work within those confines, and the author is forced to work within those confines, and I really like it. It's Monday, y'all. Anyway, this one was fun. It was okay. It was about 9 perfect strangers who go to this health retreat, and it's all about new experiences and living your best life. I don't know. They're going to be transformed by the end of it. But you slowly realize that the methods used are a little illegal, by the health people. And I don't know, like that premise where you're just like, things aren't what they seem. Ooh. And so I'm thinking like, it's going to be like, and then there were none. Like they're going to get picked off one by one. Somebody's going to be killing them. No, no spoilers, but everybody lives. But it was strange. And I definitely got a feel for the characters. I thought the characters were really well done. But, you know, not a lot happens in the book, which was really disappointing for me. But I read it really quickly, but I think that's only because I kept waiting for something to happen. And it just kind of, and it ends how you think it's going to end. Like, realistically, it ends how you think it's going to end, which is fine. I like a book based in reality. I mean, obviously I'm going to keep reading more Leanne Moriarty, but this one was not my cup of tea. 3 stars. Average. It was well written, but it was just... Okay. The next thing I read, it was a novella. Yeah, we'll say a novella. The Test by Sylvain Neuvel. He's the one that wrote the Sleeping Giant series, which I loved. So as soon as I saw this one available at my library, I just snatched it right up. Alright, so the point, or the plot of this one is a foreign citizen goes to take a citizenship test in England, and chaos ensues very quickly. This was a really powerful short story, novella, if you will. It was very much a social commentary on, you know, how far governments are going to, you know, test out the loyalty of future citizens. I don't know, it was really surprising. Like, there's no big twist, and I guess if there is a twist, it kind of comes in very early on, but it was very, I don't know, I feel like there's a lot of layers to it. To be as short as it was very strong. I would highly recommend it. It's sci-fi, it's dystopian almost. It was good. Definitely check it out. I gave it, I have a little notebook where I keep all my ratings and stuff. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. If I had to take off a star for anything, it was that it was too short. I wanted more. I would have definitely dug it more. But yeah, pick it up. The next book I read was Slender Man by Anonymous. Slender Man, most everybody knows what Slender Man is. It's a creepypasta internet invention that just kind of popped up one day and has been just taken off ever since. There have been some real life consequences of the Slender Man lore, which is actually really terrifying when you think about it, how far-reaching this story's aspect is. But this is essentially the story of one kid's journey to save his missing friend, and it was fun. It's told in epistolary format, so there are, actually this is a great example, text messages, newspaper printouts, that kind of stuff. There was, honestly, this just felt like a creepypasta. I'm surprised that this became a book, because I feel like I've read this story before. I feel like I've read this story before on creepypasta, and that doesn't mean it's bad. That doesn't mean anything is wrong with it, but I could have read the same story online instead of spending money on it. It was very quick. It was a very short, despite its, you know, standard book size. It was very short, but it's because most of the page is taken up by blank pages showing you iPhone screens. You know, I don't know. There was nothing wrong with it, but I wasn't impressed, but that doesn't mean anything. If you really like Slender Man, if you really like that, read it. You'll enjoy this. It's a fun story. If you don't really care about Slender Man, give it a pass. You're not going to enjoy it. It was just, I don't know, to be so short, there were a lot of, like, at one point the main character has a dream, and he interprets the dream to mean something, and he immediately acts on it. There's no like, well, I mean, it was just a dream, or, you know, he has the dream like one time and he's like ready to go to battle, and I'm just kind of like, you don't really have a lot of evidence to back up your theory. I don't know. It just wasn't necessarily my cup of tea. It was fun. I think I gave it 2.5 stars. I was not overly impressed. But, you know, what are you going to do? I guess not read more Slender Man books. So the last book I read was Hex by Thomas Old Whovote. There's the book. So this is a chunker. Like, it doesn't look that big, but like the pages are huge, the words are small. Well, it's not. I don't know. This is about a town that is under a curse from a witch. And it's really interesting. Like, this witch just pops up randomly in town, and the town is secluded from the world. So basically, like, if you move there, you're stuck forever, because as soon as you leave, after so much time, like, the witch's influence will start to get into your brain, and she makes you want to like kill yourself. But when you go back to town, everything's fine. It's really interesting. But the town has so evolved around this witch that like they have a whole organization in the town, kind of like a committee, like the Hex Committee, and their job is to essentially track the witch, make sure that outsiders don't see her, and if she like pops up in the middle of the street, they put like a display in front of her. Like, it's actually really interesting, and there's an app where like you can see where the witch is at any given time. Gorlock, what are you doing, baby? Gorlock, excuse me. We're gonna make you famous. Alright. Everybody, this is Gorlock. She is my sweet baby. She's missing an ear, so she might not be able to hear you. And she's gone. Alright, so back to the book. So this town just basically exists around this witch. And, you know, it's 2000 whatever in the book. Technology is expanding. These kids are leaving town to go to school, having to come back. And these teenagers, they kind of just want to exist. Like, they want a real life. And so they start to take things into their own hands as far as figuring out what's going on. And there are some very dangerous real life consequences. Now, this book was really good. If you like witches, if you like curses, if you like anything like that, pick it up because you won't regret it. It was kind of disturbing. There were things that were not shied away from. As far as like torture and punishments that were kind of upsetting to me, but that is kind of the point of horror. It is meant to make you nervous in a way. It was really great. I ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars. So, I think I only had 1 5-star read this month. But yeah, Hex got 4 stars out of me. It took me a long time to read it, and I don't think that's for any reason other than my cat is about to ruin my lighting. My other cat, maybe. She's thinking about it. Oh boy. This is not gonna end well. Framph. Yep, you see that shadow crossing my face? That's Framph. And the lighting is gone. Now you can see me in all my beauty. But anyway, Hex was really good. It was not, it was a really good look at, I don't know, like, okay, one of the things I really liked about it is how much the town is influenced by this witch, to the point that everything they do is about her, and she cares so little about this town. Like, I don't know, I'm not making any sense. Why do I like this book? I like it because it's about witches. It has a very interesting plot. So if you like, there we go, my light is back. If you like witches and good plots and kind of messed up stuff, like stuff that'll make you go, oh dang, that's what it made me do. It made me go, oh dang, then this is the book for you. I would highly recommend it. Alright, everybody. This is why I don't have friends. Alright, everybody. That is everything that I read in the month of July. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you absolutely didn't care, leave a comment down below. I'd love to chat it out with you. So yeah, that's everything in this video.